Business initiative. We operate in Uganda, and currently we have initiatives in Kampala, Wakiso, Mbale, Fort Portal, and Gulu, where we are looking at how best can consumers get quality service and goods, and how best can we bring the consumer voice to make businesses better. And that in this aspect, we front the quality culture aspect. With quality culture, you have got quality life. Quality services, I was listening into Joseph when he was raising the issues like what UPC can do. But when I'm talking about all this and what just Professor has raised, I look at quality governance will deliver quality life. Quality governance will deliver quality service delivery. All these are issues that we do in advocating to make sure consumers get value for their money. Businesses provide the consumers quality goods and services. And in this initiative with regards to aflatoxin, one of our major aspects we do, or programs, are in food safety. And one of the aspects we say that if food is not safe, it is not food. So these are some of the issues that we continuously look at the consumer center. We engage with the different powers that be. In this matter, if because you have not yet asked me but in this aflatoxin matter, science has done its role for better business. And today I would like to push it to the members of parliament, and I expected to see a role of them, but Honorable Semuju is here. I wanted to raise to them that the scientists, you've given them the money, allotted them money, they've done the research. But when you asked why today, majority of the consumers who are the engine for this country, without consumer consumption, without consumers buying anything, the economy cannot run. The consumers are sick. The consumers are getting poisonous food. This is a ticking time bomb. The health burden on the economy can collapse. It might not collapse shortly, but it can in the medium, gradually, short term and long term. The ebold productivity of this country will go down if we do not put food security and food safety. The country can never have security without food safety. Just imagine a battalion going when it is dilating. Will it protect this country? It's all about food. We wake up every morning. If you're breathing in poor quality air, you drink poor quality water, you eat poor quality breakfast, will Honorable Semuju be in position to legislate? Things you're talking about for Europe. No, they are not for Europe. And one other thing that I am raising here, this is how we sweep these key important things under the carpet. And when we raise them, you say you're tarnishing the national economy. Are we proud of marketing poor quality stuff? Are we a poor quality country? No. We are poor quality. We are not poor quality people. We are quality people. So we need...
Henry Chimera, the way you deliver this doomsday news.
No, it's not doomsday news.
Even a tone, you have it right for. But let me ask you something.
Please do.
All schools in Uganda, the staple is posho for porridge and lunch, and rice.
Yes.
And if these are the challenges...
Yes.
So what do we do? As I work in a school, so every day when we go to buy posho, should we be looking for a logo that says this one is aflatoxin checked and so on?
That is important, and that's the key aspect. We need to check out. One of the first thing is we need to invest in quality infrastructure as a country. Schools do not buy from special markets. They buy from the common markets. Okay? And this is when school poisoning was on.
For my understanding,
yes, please.
The maize we are taking to South Sudan, was that the complaint going back?
Yes. Sure. You see, this is why I'm saying that as a country we need to take on a quality culture in whatever we're doing. You see, we might not think in the longer term, our economy will die, our businesses will die. And we are talking of unemployment. It will continuously grow because we don't have quality culture in whatever we're doing. We need to have quality infrastructure to mill, to process, and eat quality food to be productive.
So what's being done to
now,
enable
what is
that
being
quality?
done? The scientists have brought the evidence. The members of parliament, the duty bearers, need to invest and allot enough money to do inspection, surveillance, putting quality infrastructure to mill. Do you know that maize mills need to be of food grade? But we are using fabrication. We fabricate millings from materials that is not for food. We end up in all our... No. We need a healthy nation to be productive. Now, I'll tell you one big thing that, and I'm not saying what I'm going to say is a crime, but this is where the conflict of interest is. The executive is in business. The legislatures are in business. The judiciary is in business. The regulators are in business, and business is in business. Who is there to protect the consumer? When you raise an issue, I'm also in business. But when you raise an issue, it will attach somebody who will say, this is my business. Let's look at COVID. We were all vulnerable. And I'm happy COVID did a forensic audit on us as a country. It showed us where we are weak, but have we improved? The foodstuffs of all of us who are vulnerable, who are home. Our institutions told us the foods that are put there are poor quality. Where did they end up? No action was taken. So this is where we need to take on responsibility as a country. Have quality in whatever we are doing.
Okay. Let's go back to Professor here. Excuse me. Professor Kaya.
Yes, please.
So who is able to, I don't know what to use, who is able to remove aflatoxins in Uganda's food? I'm told there's only one person in one factory in Jinja that can do it. So should the entire country send their product to Jinja to remove aflatoxins?
We are all concerned, right from farmers.
We are finished the concern bit. Yes. Now we are into what is happening.
Exactly.
Who's doing what?
The farmers are responsible. The traders are responsible.
They can't. My mother plants casoli because and she has never heard of aflatoxins.
Aflatoxin contamination starts from the farm.
So what
farmers harvest, for example, maize very late. They leave it in the field to dry in there. And this fungus, meets it there and starts contaminating it. When they are drying on bare ground. And bare ground is the soil is the best source of.
So, Professor, break it down for my mother, because I'll tell you why.
Yes.
She delays the harvest. It is safer in a farm. It's easier to dry in the farm. Then she brings it and dries it on the ground, because when she puts canvas on it, the canvas has the, what do we call it gets wet. And that's a problem. So I forget the actual term to use.
This is exactly where we have a...
So instead of lamenting what the farmers are doing, what are you doing?
This is where we are having a serious challenge. The kind of, canvas, the tarpaulins they use, are they appropriate for drying? You see, this is
where are they going to get the one from appropriate from?
Yes, the structures. This is what Henry Kimera was saying. The structures must work.
Yeah.
Because these extension officers know very well that you cannot use a blue, yellow, whatever canvas to dry maize. You're supposed to use a black one.
An extension officer should know.
Exactly. They should know. They should do their job. They should tell the farmers the risks of leaving maize to dry in the field. In fact, these days, let me tell you, they no longer even dry it on the farm. Traders find maize in the field. It is shelled in the field. They transport the shellers on borders. They take them to the field. They shell the maize, put it in sacks, and then they transport it without further drying. How shall we protect? Then you find maize being dried along the roadside, cassava on the roads. In this 21st century, we are still doing that. Don't we even know that this is something wrong? Cassava on bare ground.
When I last went to Abdul's place, they have a new road and they put on cassava for growing.
we have legislation. These people like Semuju, you will see these things. What do you say?
But Professor,
yes,
the Grain Council of Uganda,
yes,
with support from AGRA and the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office have brought you here.
Yes.
But we are lamenting. I'd like you to be telling people, do 1, 2, 3. Let's start with Joseph Otieno here, see if he has what people should be doing.
It's a crisis, and I know it's about what people should do.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that my best food is groundnuts, I am actually quaking. It was my breakfast. It's likely to be my lunch in between my next meeting. But quite clearly, I think our guests could not have put it any better. It's clearly a question of infrastructure. It's clearly a question of information. It's also clearly a question of organization. I started much earlier by saying that we need to invest in health. We need to invest in agriculture. So quite clearly what they're telling us here, and I don't know, Oscar, how old you were. But if you
ate posho in school.
If you ate posho in school, that's not old enough. Old enough is to have
I
watched.
work in a school and we serve posho as well.
Old enough is to
at
have
least
seen
3 times a week.
Indeed. It was to have seen the infrastructure of the cooperative movements, in terms of coffee, tea, and particularly in this case, for me, most familiar, cotton. How many of these were basic illiterates, but the systems were there, the instructions were there, the organizations were there, and it was absolutely commonsensical. How do you pick the cotton? How do you look after it from then? And how do you take it to the stores? And which ones are going to be which grade? Something as basic as that, really, of course,
For listeners that haven't heard, Semuju has ended it. That was under UPC.
And I know, of course, I'm the optimist. I just want to insist that it is actually possible, Mr. Museveni will be very happy to hear that even under his failed NRA, with the lamentations and with the messages being said, it is actually possible for us to do these things. So it does not have to wait for UPC, but UPC is coming anyway. But it does not have to wait for UPC because I think it's actually critically coming. And it's what we need to do. But yeah. The question.
Yeah. Because UPC now works with NRM.
No,
yeah, exactly.
Why doesn't UPC help NRM to do the things it was doing?
No, they're individuals with the NRA, but they're driven by profit, which is part of the other issue. So when the issue is about profit rather than regulation, when the conflict of interest has already been suggested by the professional guests here, because they're really not political, we need to make sure that we try and mainstream it to the facts. It gets difficult. It's very much about regulations, very much about standards. Do you know, Oscar,
yes,
that the challenges we've had with AGOA recently, one of them, people localized them to if you like, homosexuality, but one of the concerns was about standards. So quite clearly, if we could actually fail in trying to deliver, in terms best quality in terms of our fabrics and what we export, it's not surprising that now Nkrumah Road is a specialist factory for organized alternatives. These are things that we should be able to deal with, and really at the center is this good enough, because it's very much about health. I hope that the country takes it much more serious. But of course, the guys at the top have the groundnuts which are well looked after. The bottom majority, which is myself, I know I'm delighted to have my brother Abdu and Ibrahim, and the very competent guys in the Legislative Assembly. This message must be pushed, and I can tell you guys that, well, count on me as Uganda People's Congress and as Otieno that I'm part of this campaign.
Okay, Honorable Semuju. So for you today, no vinyebwa, no posho.
You see, Oscar, the list of our problems.
I should say welcome, Abdu, Honorable Abdu Katontu, to the gang. I like that shirt. Very, very nice.
Thank you. It has nothing to do with the aflatoxins, though.
You see, the list of our problems keep growing. All the roads now are broken down, so I came thinking, do I buy a tractor now?
To go to Parliament?
Everywhere.
From Kira?
I mean, just behind, just below the Koroya Strip, where the president and his family trekking every day.
Lower terrace.
Yes.
Lower terrace.
Because if you have potholes where the president almost lives, I said, now I need to buy a tractor. I no longer do exercise. Just sit in the car and then it's going to be bumping to Kampala. Now they are bringing aflatoxin.
But before we had a problem with milk, said quality of milk, quality of eggs, quality of chicken, now aflatoxin.
And they are
as you're coming in and as he has brought it, aflatoxin is in milk, is in eggs.
Aflatoxin is in milk and eggs.
Yes.
Because they feed on contaminated feed.
You see, they have made my morning very, very difficult. That's why I asked, and I was not joking. Now I need to do a list of what not to eat, because that's going to be for me the only solution. Unfortunately, my children
already there are many things you don't drink.
My children go to school. And as you said, when you're going to buy, say, maize, rice, etc., do you have a label there to say this is aflatoxin free? When I chaired the committee on COSASE, the first question I asked every government entity that appeared, at what capacity are you operating? And the idea, Oscar, was to know, because you see the tendency in Parliament is to roll people in the mud because of accountability. So my first question, at what capacity are you operating? And I discovered, I'll tell you, UNBS told me they are operating at less than 30% capacity. They were still taking some samples to laboratories in Kenya. And Chimera's adding South Africa for medicine, for everything almost. And I've told you they're operating at less than 30% capacity. I don't know where the Professor Kaya and your OB, they are sending us. Maybe they are, because I am frightened. For myself, I can say I will now be eating only matoke and this and that. But what about my children who go to school? So who do we ask to go and check their food, either in the stores of the school or before it is served? And I'm very happy, Oscar. Sometimes I feel like maybe for a show like this, I should even stay away and just listen to people who are professional. But I want them to help me understand, in terms of percentage, how big this problem is and how do we deal with it. You were speaking about your own mother. I was born in a village. I grew up there. For us, we are doing maize as quickly as possible because you have to sell to go and pay.
And it's seasonal, school fees time.
Yes.
Easter,
and we did
Christmas.
not mind. We did not mind that it's going to be affected by this and that. All that we cared for was to dry it and then begin selling, whether it's beans or not. And even the luxury of either building cement or concrete, it is not there in the village. You just remove from the garden and throw in the compound, and then sometimes you are even hitting using sticks, put in a sack, you go and sell. And I think majority of Ugandans are still at that stage. Even under UPC that did so well of Ocheno, they left us at that stage. I didn't see UPC in my village telling us how to harvest maize and how to and where to dry it. No, but I was the one removing maize from the garden. So I want to hear from them practical solutions. Solutions not for government,
for people out there in the garden,
but solutions to the ordinary person who is growing maize. Advising what do we do?
Like what component of PDM should go towards that? No,
there you are complicating it. As you said, your mother. I just figured out myself when I was still in Bijao growing maize and harvesting it, and the school fees is not enough. I have to say it very quickly. So that procedure will never be followed, and I guess it is not followed even as of today. So I want to know the percentage of this problem in the country.
Okay.
Is it localized in some particular areas? Is it widespread? Who does the checking? You guys who are in it, especially the one who of the
Chimera.
consumer, Chimera. Tell us if you've done any sampling, because if all that you can do is to ask people not to eat these things, then we do it.
Yeah. Okay, Abdul, most welcome to Gang. I know your area, they grow all this cassava,
On the road.
They Cassava not so much on the road, but maybe
Cassava
rice.
on the road, Oscar.
And rice,
Oscar.
even maize.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
For them,
So-
instead of driving vehicles on the road, they are putting in a cassava maize.
They drive what they don't have.
Thank you very much, Oscar.
Even in UPC time, that's what they used to do.
Yes.
But at least there was regulation.
You know, I listened to the professor talking about aflatoxins being even in milk and in the eggs. And the reason is because they consume food which is already contaminated. And I was wondering if Ibrahimia was edible, I think whoever feeds on him would certainly have a problem. And the reasons are not very difficult to come by. I want to put it in Uganda. You know, Mwakuzampaka, you just grow up by defiance. The sort of story Ibrahim is telling is a true story, not for Chazanga, but for Bugweri, for anywhere in the country.
I.e. the immunity was higher at the time.
We don't know.
Somehow the
That's
human
true.
body gets adapts to the situations and continues fighting it and so on. I'll give you a small example. If I got my kid and took him to the village to drink that water from the well, just running, tomorrow they will be in hospital. And yet you have got these little kids in Chazanga growing up on that water, becoming, you know, they go bathe in it and drink it. And then it is running away from the pit latrines and so on down there. And yet somehow they grow up and so on. So it is a sign of backwardness and a sign of bodies naturally getting, you know, fighting and immunity and so on. And there is a little bit of science and nature, both together. But having said that, it's not that this aflatoxin thing is now new. It has been there. But now, the more a country sort of develops, then you get more professionals. Then they dedicate all their time to say, by the way, is the problem. Then they come with all these research and say, by the way, it is this. And this goes to what we see these days, cancer. Everybody in the village talking about cancer. When we grew up, unfortunately, it wasn't me, but let's say we, because I don't have that underprivileged background. Me, I have a privileged background.
Son of a chief. We shall see you next Saturday. Seated at the front row.
Yeah, Mwakuzampaka. Just defied and continue defying these odds and grew up. When we were growing up, Oscar, maybe I'll yes, of course. I don't know. Maybe I'll sound arrogant. But let's go back to the real issues.
Because that's what is needed to, and the message goes.
You know, what goes on in the village, you can't understand. You can't. It's very difficult to understand.
Yeah.
The sort of waters they drink, water sources, the foods they eat, the lives they live. It's really bad. It is a diseased life. It is a diseased environment. It's just bad. So what we'll have to do as this society goes on developing and getting more professionals, then we need to address ourselves. What is this we can do to help some of these people?
Yeah.
And I think this is what the professors are doing. Say, these foods we are eating, these are the problems. And then we have to address that. And once they do their research, then it comes to us who are policymakers. Because they don't allocate resources. Even the resources which are there, it is us who give them.
Yeah.
But we don't even give them enough resources, unfortunately, because sometimes our priorities are not correct. So when you have a program like this, I think they are speaking to people like me, like Ibrahim here, and the others who listen, who have got the platforms. Say, look here, we have a national problem, and you guys, can you address it? And I'm very, very excited about it. that you are talking and you should talk. Because, Oscar, that it is South Sudan of all countries to tell us, of all countries in the world, to tell us, by the way, you are sending us diseased food. And for us, we see nothing wrong with it. We grow, we trade, we are exporting. And I mean, it's disheartening. True. It's really disheartening. So we need to wake up and think sometimes we are in program like this and it's politics. Maybe that's the time Namfuka was getting excited a couple of weeks ago. He said, look here, I think we need more of these other programs and conversations to make sure that we do improve our country, which may not actually be partisan, much as my brother Joseph sometimes is cheap-seated, but I imagine that's a light moment.
Yeah. So Namfi, you're on the mic. Aflatoxins. My suspicion is Professor Kaya has never seen that maize meal, the one I saw when we went through Nyenga. Because even before you get to the machine itself, the surroundings and where it is placed. So even before aflatoxins, there's the issue of dust, stones, and then now they've added on aflatoxins.
Is there aflatoxins in peas?
Yes. Everything.
And
everything that is
I see Joseph munching away.
I'm been to the boiling stuff.
And even the coffee has got its own.
Oh, coffee. So go on now.
That's why I'm taking tea.
Oscar,
yes.
You'll be amazed at how many of us don't even know these things till you start farming. And you hear stories of Kenya refusing our, products, South Sudan refusing our products, and
I think that was below the belt, South Sudan refusing.
Because they...
You mean they want to die just to...
It hurts.
They are worse than
It hurts.
They don't deserve to die. It's like you
raising it or them raising
them rejecting us.
It was
Oscar, your relative in the village can actually reject a car that is not moving, that you donate to them. So yes, they may not be able to even afford one that moves or doesn't move, even the one you're giving them, but it doesn't mean that they have to take anything that you discard. But Oscar, the issue I think goes
Bravo
back
to them for
poverty.
The ones finding out first. Shouting
you
out.
mean they have more scientists than Uganda?
Well, go on now.
And usually you'll find that some of these things are even driven politically, like someone didn't pay someone and then they decided, you know what, I'll get back at you, because there's also this weakness. But Oscar,
You don't know what to eat now because of aflatoxin.
they've made you paranoid.
Go on, Nafi.
So the issue, Oscar, is at the end of the day, with the levels of prevailing poverty, it is very, very hard for us. We actually, these become luxuries. These are like fighting for human rights when you can't even afford food yourself. So it's like you've said, you're going to complain about the aflatoxins in the maize, but even the road to the maize meal, even the woman cooking posho for the maize meal has their child defecating right next to the saucepan that has the food. And they're cleaning with the same hands that they are using to cut the onions for the...
Did you say onions?
The onions for the soup, for the peas, for the chikomando. The peas that you're going to eat. So once you go down that rabbit hole, it is endless. But programs like this are very good because then we are aware that these things exist. And then we know the reasons why we need to get out of abject poverty. Because once you're poor, once you're preaching to poor people and you're telling them don't eat that maize because it has aflatoxins which are going to affect you, but they're so hungry that they can't hear you. So everything else you say becomes background noise, which brings us back to the systems in place to even catch these problems. UNBS, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, all these organizations are so underfunded, they're not even aware. The people who should be aware, most of them are not even aware that we have these problems. But we've got to start somewhere. We've got to make children aware in schools that there's such a thing as aflatoxins, this is how we deal with them. And once when such a child is in power, I think it is much easier for them to fight poverty. You see, let me tell you, sometimes you find someone who has stolen money from Mulago, and you're talking to them and they tell you, but it's government money, because they don't know the repercussions of that kind of behavior. But if we start now telling the public and making them aware, because right now this is the only thing we can do. We can't even throw resources at fighting the problem with aflatoxins. We can only, in countries like Africa, because of poverty, we are more reactionary than preventative in most cases. We only react when South Sudan tells us, you're sending us rubbish. And the irony of which was full of rubbish.
But now, because we've got two legislators here. Because
yes.
The hopeful element. We've got two legislators here. We can. So part of the campaign should really be that, and the UPC lead indeed, that we should push for reform in our budgetary systems to push resources towards these areas. Yes,
but they have to even be aware and know that there is a problem, because most of these legislators, most of these legislators don't even have the knowledge.
You don't have to go beyond what you are saying. I know where you are going.
Because they will be spending so much time on Zake, Kinyamatama, because they are not aware that there is a problem with aflatoxins. So maybe we need to start there, and I don't know what you gentlemen are going to do about that, but that is the start. As a poor country, as we are working to deal with the much bigger problems, because I will tell you, this problem is aesthetic. Semuju will tell you that today he may be paranoid about those sumbusas. He's eating chindazi, but trust me, tomorrow you'll have forgotten that there are aflatoxins in the sumbusas. I'll be back to the sumbusas. So I think my contribution is, how then do we make this a problem that is recognizable by the decision makers, by the legislators?
But do you give attention to it in Nyenga because you've done
No, we don't. Even
you just plant.
You just plant. You don't even pay attention.
Hope for the best.
And hope for the best. Keep your fingers crossed. And when the worst comes, because even that maize rejected by South Sudan, you're going to come and sell it here in Chisenya, and it will go very quickly. So
Oscar, there's a point which I missed. You see, many years ago, people would fall sick, and there will be reasons why they are falling sick.
Yes.
I said this one has been bewitched. They are fighting over land, all those sorts of things. Now, some of those cases are now being diagnosed. That actually, this is not witchcraft. This is actually what you call cancer. And what is the cause? Before, it was different. People in the village were actually having these problems, but they never went to hospitals.
Yes.
They were never, the diseases were never properly diagnosed, and therefore we resorted to all sorts of reasons. Now it is different. People end up in any Mulago, you have a cancer institute. It is a little bit of operating. You have doctors, even at regional level, who can diagnose it. Then they say, by the way, this is cancer. And these cases are on the increase, on the rise. And that's the point Ibrahim was raising here, that we needed even more statistics. People should be studying, say, look here, how many cases of cancer do we have? Is it on the rise or not?
Okay, I have here Mr. Robert Mwanje, a grain processor and trader. He's the current chairman of the Grain Council of Uganda.
He's a vector of aflatoxins.
And well, and Semuju talked about him. He's also a director at the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. And he said they only have 30% of their budget.
But they were operating at less than 30%.
At 30%. But Mr. Mwanje, maybe you could respond to the question that is not, what can NAMFI do now? So I was referring to my mother, but NAMFCA is here, and she grows, she plants anything she can get hands on that will harvest in Nyenga, and has never concerned herself with aflatoxins.
I thank you, Oscar. Good morning to you all panelists. I'm glad to face it off with my brother Semuju Nganda, Bwetutagulia, and the Honorable Katuntu here. But I want to paint a better picture. It's not really lost. You know, since the inception of this program, it's been lamenting. As the Grain Council, we have done something. We only need a backup. We need support. I'll give you a very quick background. I have 177 members. And these are the sector captains who have tried their best. We have borrowed and invested heavily in facilities. We process, but unfortunately, many people don't want to come to us. We have the very reason why we're even here. We are telling people it's not lost. If you came and came on time, because what the food we reject is the food that goes to, unfortunately, some of the meals. We have what we call industrial self-regulation. We try to regulate ourselves. We try to say, what can we do such that whatever we process, whatever we give to people to eat, can be fit for human consumption. Now, I want to point out one thing. When you people, the legislators, liberalized this economy, you did not accompany it with a proper definition of what liberalization is. So you left it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry to come and participate. You find that our brothers, which is very good, they come all the way, cross the borders. They don't only buy grain, but they buy farms. Now, this is the grain that you find crosses the border. This is the grain at most intervals which is even rejected. But the process would be that this grain is brought, given to the processors, and then it is processed before it develops the aflatoxins. Now, the other thing is, I had a debate here that why now? I think we need to remember that Uganda is really endowed. This grain, we were not doing it as a cash crop from the beginning. We are doing it as a food crop. So one would have maybe half an acre or an acre of maize and beans, which they would do very well. Now, I also need to remind you, I am not an expert in agriculture, but there is the little I know. The grain we harvest it when it is not ready. What does that mean? It means it is too prone to getting the fungi. Whereas our mothers, those old women we despise, used to wait for the, like I'll use kasoli. Once it kukonoka, I don't know how to call that technically. How you have understood. Exactly. So it means the moisture content in that maize, when it bends, the moisture content has now reduced.
Yes.
And they would be so smart, they would not even shrivel that, shell that maize. They would get it, leave it with a comb, dry it properly. That is the time when we even had bans. But today, everything has been commercialized. Are you aware? I will not be ashamed to say this. People spray ambush to make the maize look dry. And you find that the moisture content, me at my processing plant is in Mitiana. I can tell you, what I reject is what finds its way to the border. We have made noise. You people, you are aware that Uganda does the best policies, but they are never implemented. Now, where does the honor shift from us to you people?
Thank you, Mr. Mwanje.
So I wanted to clear that it's not lost. We have done our part as members of the Grain Council. You would be clapping for us.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Definitely not yet.
That is asking for too much from the gang.
Indeed. So conclusions. Your 2 minutes, Mr. Chimera.
Thank you very much. I would like to say, Oscar, you have, the gang, all of you have given me a good day. Why? You have said the actual things. As the legislature, you have a role to play, and this is the role you have to play. We have enough to keep Uganda safe with regards to food safety. the budgets, go and talk in the face of His Excellency, the ministers, and tell them we need to have a country with a quality culture. We need to have a country that is safe. Without food safety, we don't have security as a country. We will boast about our being endowed, being gifted by nature. We don't have tomorrow if we have got sick population. The youth are the majority, but they are feeding on the most unhealthy foods. So where is our productivity going to be tomorrow? Consumers are the engine of the economy. Once they are sick, the economy is sick. Revenue will not, whatever investment is in this country, and consumers cannot purchase what they produce unless it is exported. But then who will produce locally? Unless we don't like our country as Ugandans, we need to be healthy consumers. And I would like to end by saying that if it is not safe, it is not food. Then number two, food is healthy care and medicine is sick care. As a country, we need to invest. Let's operationalize all of these laws. I always tell, Oscar, I'm going to, I always tell people, food is health care. Medicine is sick care.
So we should eat food
that
like
is
a
healthy.
medicine, or else we will eat medicine like a food.
Yes. Then lastly, and it is good, the chairperson of the Grain Council, Mr. Mwanja, has raised it, NAMFUC has raised it. As a country, the Bureau, I sit on a number of technical committees where we have standards in this country enough to keep us safe. But let's take the Food and Drug Act, which is way back in the 30s. We say it is obsolete. But when you ask, I always tell the policy people I'm with, if you wanted to run a marathon, do you wake up and run a marathon? You have to practice. Now, we are talking of a Food and Drug Act that is obsolete. Are we implementing it? It has enough to keep us going. And this is where we request that the National Bureau of Standards needs to be allotted enough money to do its role. We need enough extension. You're asking, Oscar, who will tell your mother, we need extension service providers to be recruited the way we recruit the army, the way we recruit the police, the way we recruit all other security. In big numbers, we need the extension farmers to be on the ground in the communities. So that is my major message. And one other aspect in conclusion, that the good thing, Honorable Semuju, this side you don't go.
Thank you, Mr.
But
Chair.
Chibuku is also contaminated. Alcohol is also contaminated because it is produced from contaminated raw material. So let's do nurturing of a quality culture in this country.
Chimera, some subjects, leave them alone. But
I was telling Honorable we need to worry about that.
the conclusion, Professor Achileo Kaya.
Thank you very much, Oscar. I want to conclude by saying that let the parliamentarians demand to have the Uganda aflatoxin management, action plan, which is in place. That one has got all the practical solutions that
we have a plan in Uganda.
It is there. Yeah.
Where can a listener
from
find it?
Ministry of Agriculture.
I have a copy.
Yeah. So let them get that plan.
Is it on the internet?
It has.
Can we do a www?
It should be on the internet, I'm sure.
Okay.
And it has got all the practical solutions. There's nothing new that we are talking about today. President Museveni is aware of this. Everybody is aware of this. In the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Health. So we need to come together and implement the standards that have been put in place by the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Let us not stop, as we were saying, let us not stop eating, our staples. Let us not stop consuming the posho. Let us not stop eating, groundnuts, because they not all levels of aflatoxins kill. There are levels which can be tolerated. Yeah, but as we talk now, go and see what is going on in St. Valley Kudembe, Nikalerwe, and wherever, all those markets, people who are processing groundnuts, milling groundnuts. You're telling me, that you never eat groundnuts again. Go and see what is exactly happening right now. Let us think about our morals. The moral decay in this country is affecting us so much. People no longer care about others, they care about themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Maybe we need a show on UNBS because they have a lot to do. The other day, a few years ago, they were catching out people doing Bizigo, fake Bizigo. Now they must fight aflatoxins and so on. And it has a very serious funding gap. And as Semuju said, if we don't fund it better, nothing will happen. So thank you very much, Mr. Mwanje, who is the chairperson of the current chairman of the Grain Council of Uganda and the director of UNBS. Thank you, Professor Achille Okaya, Department of Food Technology and Nutrition. Professor Anen, thank you. Team leader, Mr. Henry Chimera, who is my OB. We have singing and dancing competition as Rotary Club of Kampala North. Your ticket will cost you 20,000. John Muyonga is already there. Your colleague who you taught, I'm going to tell him you've purchased a ticket. So thank you very much. We stop for a break. And after the break, I have Captain Mukula, Honorable Captain, all those titles. Mukula is in the studio to talk about fuel. We'll stop for a break.
The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM. This week on Desert Island Discs.
I have Ms. Frances Birungi Odong, who's the Executive Director, Uganda Community-Based Association for Women and Children Welfare.
Like I said, I wanted to be a lawyer. When I did my exams senior 6, lucky enough in that cohort, I emerged as the best student. I was given government sponsorship to do social sciences. So I went and talked to my parents about this. I was like, there's a good side of all this. I've made it. I did well. I've been given this place on government sponsorship, but
my dream is somewhere else.
My dream is something else. I want to be a lawyer. So what I remember is my father looked at me and said, "What are you talking about? The government of Uganda is going to pay your school fees, and you're here telling me
your dreams
that
and
your
passions."
Dreams and passions."
The Desert Island Discs. Talking success every Sunday at 7 p.m. with Flavia on Capital FM.
Keep it locked, baby.
Fresh hits for Uganda.
If you try to imagine the taste of a regular cup of coffee as a sound, it would probably sound like this. Not nice, but perhaps it may sound like this. Better, but not great. Now allow us to present the sound of the taste of Star Cafe Premium Coffee. Now that's the sound of a great coffee taste. Because only the finest Ugandan coffee goes into making the Star Cafe Premium. It's great. The greatest coffee experience.
The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM.
Welcome back from the break. This is the Capital Gang. It was a noisy break because the people fighting aflatoxins were moving out. A real lesson that they've given us. So, you're most welcome to the Capital Gang. Honorable, I don't know which titles should come first. Is it Honorable or Captain or... Captain is his name. So Honorable Captain Mike Mukula, most welcome to Gang. You've not been here for a while.
I've
good
not been here for some time, really.
Yes. And good to see that you're in good health.
Thank you. When I see cartoon to Semuju, my brother from Tororo, UPC trying to reclaim the seat. And my wonderful sister. It's a pleasure.
So, thank you. It's good you're here. There's a directive by the president on moving from one middleman to another middleman. This is the average person might understand it like that.
Yeah.
So before addressing the average person, what is the import of that directive? What is it?
There are really two major policy directives, and what I would say the initiative to amend the Act, the Oil Supply Act of 2003, in order now to move to G2G, which is government to government, as a policy shift, and also ensure that UNOC, the Uganda National Oil Company, comes in to be the lead and major and only supplier of fuel to the country. And you'd also want to note that the history of the supply chain of fuel through Kenya was initially through what you call the OTS, the open tender system. And when President Ruto took over power,
Who's also the trade?
I don't know about that.
It's public knowledge.
He made a shift to G2G because Kenya had a major shortage of forex or foreign exchange.
President Ruto is the one who initiated first the government to government.
Government to government. Now, as it were, the argument that Honorable Ruth Nankabira placed before Parliament and as guided by the President was that there was a lot of loss to what you call middlemen in Kenya, and it was then subjecting the high cost of fuel at the pump price. And you'll note that the argument here is because there has been a rise in the pump cost, in the fuel price in the country and in the region. It's also a global factor. But let me go back to the origin of this framework. You recall that there are four things that have caused the high cost of fuel at a global level. One is that the Ukraine-Russia war, which then banned or gave Russia the embargo from the Western Axis, and Russia, which is a major oil supplier, was cut off from the supply chain at the global level. Two, you'll also note that because of that shortage, there was definitely now an initiative which was carried out by Saudi Arabia of recent to try to reduce the output by 1 million barrels every day. That reduction obviously drove the cost of fuel to a high level, a new dimension. The third component, which has emerged obviously, is that the geopolitics, and as fuel is a geopolitical matter, you'll find that at the global level, the fluctuations of fuel as driven by the cost of fuel at the New York Stock Exchange, which is driven by at the Platts, what you'd call the cost of a barrel, has also gone up, and that increase is what also caused the cost of fuel to go up. The fourth, which is now creating the simmers, is that normally during the winter time, the cost of fuel in the European axis or the northern axis goes up. And because most people want to heat, naturally the cost of fuel goes up. But the shift has now been brought about by citing that on the side of Kenya, which went and negotiated with Aramco, with the Saudi Arabia company, and negotiated with the countries like United Arab Emirates and Abu Dhabi, the supply chain to Kenya, which deferred payment in forex for some time, I think the initial period was 9 months. It has been extended to next year, December. And it has got a surcharge of cost for fuel. That means that you put in cost of money. And Uganda was paying for that cost and yet we're paying for that fuel in cash. So indirectly, we're paying for certain costs. If I'm to again give you another narrative, the position is that when you get the middlemen, what you call the forex traders, fuel oil traders, Uganda, or the OMCs, we have 170 oil marketing companies in the country.
170?
Yes, 170. And when you look at the market, 3 companies, Shell, Vivo, Total, and Starbucks, control 46% of the market share.
Even Starbucks?
Even Starbucks.
In the next 1 year.
That Semuju may be right.
Yes.
Because Starbucks is a new entrant.
It's a new entrant, but they are very aggressive.
And they've been in the background. They've been actually actual suppliers of oil in the region.
Okay.
The point that you also need to know.
Yes, go on.
That the other 54%, the other 54% of what you would call 167 oil marketing companies control 54%. What does that mean? When you tabulate all this entire supply chain, Ugandan companies hardly have any single share. Yeah. Hardly any single share. Now, what is fuel and where does the cost come in? And that's why I want to bring you to understand the framework very clearly.
Yeah.
When fuel comes into Mombasa, the costs that are embedded in are basically fees from a Kenya Ports Authority, KPA, and the pipeline that is through Kenya Pipeline Corporation, KPC. Then you have the handling fees. But because Ugandan companies do not have, or most of them do not have the financial muscle, especially the 54, they now fell into the trap of a cycle where you have had to averagely most of the time, the Kenyan companies speculate and buy fuel and hold. Then because we don't have the financial muscle, they buy in bits. That cost amounts to about between $8 to $10 million per month, which is a minimum of about $96 million a year. So Uganda was losing that to the Kenyans, for you to understand the context of what you call the supply chain. Now, in the supply chain of fuel in this country, you have what you call downstream, which is the flow of fuel from Mombasa to Uganda. Then you have midstream, which is obviously, if you want to look at it in a broader context, is a refinery in the country. Then downstream, which brings in our crude oil supply to Mwanza, to Tanga, through the pipeline, as it were. Now, to get you to understand the whole framework, Uganda consumes 7 million liters, between 6.5 to 7 million liters a day. That gives you
of fuel.
And that gives you approximately between 200 to 210 million liters a month. Last year, we spent $1.6 billion on fuel imports. Now, the true thing that you need to see is that in the flow in the downstream flow chart, where has Uganda been losing? 1 has been the forex traders. 2, the fees that speculators put in. And then 3, you have also got to understand that in terms of the supply chain, for example, our company, Mahadi Infra, we have storage capacity of 70 million liters of fuel. This is the largest, and we occupy 50% of the hospitality or the storage capacity of the country. The other rest of the country, including the storage tanks in the Jinja, have a storage of 30 million liters, 10 being petrol.
We're talking about the mini storage capacity.
In Jinja, which is got 20. Now it is back to 20 million is diesel, 10 million is for petrol. We do not have strategic fuel reserves, therefore. We don't have capacity to, if you are to follow the Act of 2003, it means that the Act which specified very clearly that a country must have capacity to store fuel for at least 10 days. That can only be now guaranteed by Mahadi. Now, in terms of the supply chain...
Does Mahadi have the fuel now?
We have now imported and brought on board over 60 million liters into the country.
Mahadi.
So for you to contextualize, I want you to understand that in the arrangement, Mahadi has reduced the cost or reduces the cost of fuel by over 50% in terms of transport.
Because of shipping.
Because of shipping and the economies of scale. Because each barge carries 4.5 million liters. We launched the one MT Kabaka Mutevi about a year ago. We launched yesterday MT Mount Elgon, which also carries 4.5 million liters. Meaning that in terms of saving for the country, for the pump price, the reduction of fuel and logistics by 50% is a plus or an advantage to the country. Finally, if you want to get the context of value chain, a trailer which carries fuel from Eldoret, Kisumu or Nakuru will
carries
charge
about 10,000 liters.
36,000 liters. Between 33 to 36,000 liters. Will charge 161 shillings per liter. Ours charges 64 shillings per liter. And if you want to know that if the cost addition to it is taxes, for diesel is 1,350 for petrol and 1,280 for diesel. Now, and then kerosene is 200 shillings.
Just a small one before, because you've put in a good kalango for your company. I hope you're doing good things. But so this directive of the president, does it affect your company is the first question. 2, does it annoy the Kenyans who are going to lose out on some money? And 3, does it annoy that 54% constituency in a fuel fraternity?
It has got several implications. Number 1, Uganda's fuel will be cheaper. Let's get that first.
In what time frame?
In the time that you go into G2G.
Okay.
Because the OMCs have already...
Let him finish. Let him address these questions, then I come to you.
Let me get to you to understand.
Go on, Captain Mike.
If you go into this, you remove first of all the $8 to $10 million loss to those speculators per day.
Well,
get that to understand. 2,
is it easy
Uganda
to do that?
has been feeding or paying into the Kenyan economy the millions of dollars which Kenya benefits in order to pay its suppliers. Now that money is going to remain here to the account, which may be escrow, depending on what Parliament determines, and it will now then be paid directly to the supplier. What Uganda will pay now is the fees. How does it affect us? It is important, that was the first question you asked. It is important for you to understand, being a logistical and hospitality company, our main initiative is to see that we at all costs reduce the cost of movement of fuel into the country by gaining the economies of scale and reducing the transport costs.
And you seem to doing that.
And we're doing that very well.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to contextualize this. If Uganda continues in that direction, because the critical point that you now, where the argument moves in, is the single supplier. And that's where Parliament will come in and argue. The supplier is Vitol. Vitol owns VTTI in Mombasa. Vitol also owns Shell Vivo, because 100%. Shell has got 152 petrol stations in the country and is the leading market player in the supply chain of fuel in the country. Now, therefore, you want to understand whether from a liberal economy, where economies of demand and supply come into play. That is where you need to find out, and that's where the argument is. But I support the policy of giving UNOC the dominant arrangement of managing the supply chain to the country, like Ethiopia has done.
A very, very good background, a very good context, and you delivered it extremely well to the understanding of Honorable Semuju. So,
the annoyance.
So Honorable Semuju, you're on microphone now. he has
understanding Semuju is on the microphone.
he has broken it well down so well.
You see, Oscar, first of all, international trade is not as simple as NRM people are presenting it. When
there's a bigger question for you. What have they been waiting for?
Yeah, let me start with Magufuli becomes the president in Tanzania. He says, no, we know where your sugar is manufactured. How can this Muswahili man be making a lot of money? So he dispatches his minister for finance to go to Brazil, to go everywhere, and created a shortage. Eventually, he discovered that these people that Onaimeke Mukula is dismissing as speculators, they are not just only traders. That the guy in Tanzania was actually investing in sugar cane growing and processing in Brazil. So they told
the
him,
Tanzanian.
Yeah, they told him, you go back to Semuju in Zanzibar, is the one for that territory.
Wow.
So the minister kept, because to get him out of business, the first thing they did was to impound his containers, and then they say they have this and that. So when they came back and they had been referred to the same man, he said the first thing is apology. You spoiled my name. At that time, they were even getting sugar from from Zanzibar. So I am sympathetic to the approach that government is taking. Hopefully, that
we have recorded that comment.
They did research, and they will not cause us a problem. That is first point. The second point, I don't know which government is pushing for this and feels very good for the public. Look at the telecom industry. Deliberately, they killed the Ugandan company, sold its assets, and some of them almost given out, some of them even to the competitor to the MTN. That's something that Ethiopia doesn't do. Look at the banking sector. All the banks were given away, and the other day, no, we now need a local bank because you can't continue this way. You see, the policy of your government, Onaimeke Mukula, is to bring investors, is to total surrender. Now they are telling us, wait a minute. For petroleum product, we must do the importation. At the beginning, on the surface, it actually looked like they are the ones who are going to do the importation. Only later to learn that actually, as Onaimeke Mukula has ably explained, that they are in a business with one supplier. They have even signed a contract even before the law is done in Parliament. As usual, they will come to Parliament and blackmail everybody, this contract, if you don't honor it. The same thing they did when they brought Pinetti. When they brought Pinetti, we were told, you see, we already have a contract. If you don't approve this motion, we are going to begin paying fines.
It's a national crisis.
Yes. And almost even something good. Why do you do it that way? Why are you in a hurry? At least you begin by doing the law.
And Mike Mukula tells you that's where he didn't say problem. He said argument is. Me, I would say the word he meant was problem.
So you
challenge. Okay, that's where the challenge is. He has worded it very carefully.
If I find you at my house and you are running from my house at a terrible speed, I think you have done something bad. That's how you are behaving. So even when you are doing something that you are presenting that is good to the country, first of all, we are very suspicious of you, but two, your own conduct, that you go and sign a contract, and then you come here and say, MPs, do a law very quickly, we want it.
let me squeeze
and
in.
then the
Joseph
same
Otieno
Museveni has become the Kayungirizi. He has caused us problems. Before you remember, AES Naire Power signing a contract that we are guaranteeing the levels of Lake Victoria. The country told him, don't sell Umeme. Then later he said, this Umeme deal is very bad. Now blaming everybody. So
Joseph Otieno.
I have been reading the two versions of Unsowing the Mustard Seed by Norman Tumuhimbise. But Norman Tumuhimbise. Tumuhimbise. Who wants a drone? Two different issues of it. And so when this conversation, and I've got a copy, and when this conversation comes in,
I need to have a look.
I just look back. I just wonder, for a regime that came to blackmail the citizens of Uganda that UPC was so bad that the best way is to kill these systems and liberalize to the extent that we hand over our government and our livelihoods to, our economy, okay? And the entire economy, thank you very much, my brother Abdu from Bugweri, to IMF, World Bank, and the Pinetis, Why does it take us 34 years to realize that we've gone so wrong, so badly, as Abraham has said it? And I don't think there is a better person to articulate this than Mike, because Mike, you've genuinely almost nearly persuaded me. But I look back to a little bit of a hole on this presentation. The transport element. Where's our infrastructure? You're absolutely right to talk about it from the coast, from the Kenyan side. Quite clearly, I've been telling most young people I meet around that, you know what? If part of the Kampala traffic thing, and we're actually discussing health and agricultural implications in terms of health early today, if our rail systems were working, I don't know how much it would be the cost of transportation from Mombasa to Kampala. And I think this is one of the things that need to be embedded. And to the extent that these guys came and found trains, UPC picked from Soroti and took it to Pakwach. NR has actually sunk it completely. Ironically, as a matter of interest, and I must say this, I've got an interest in Nagongera. The other day, two councillors from Tororo were sent to jail, allegedly for supporting a demonstration over terrible Nagongera Road in Tororo. And I wonder that if people can go to jail for that, for a road which is so bad inside town, and we're talking infrastructure as part of the conversation.
What is in the country are bad.
And the other one is so terrible. Ibrahim, you need to come to Nagongera one of these days and see. No, but the point is this, that the drive for excess profit must come to a stop. And I know, while I'm an optimist, Ibrahim will simply say that, but can you really stop it under this regime? If it were quite clearly the case, you already mentioned it, the question of our banking institutions, the broader financial institutions, including insurances, our health services, completely privatized, educational services privatized. It's very clearly the case that I don't have anybody in my mind who will trust the process that this is not a business confined now in the name of government, but to a few individuals with access. I'm not suggesting Mike would be one of them, but it's actually shocking evidence that Shell, and I've been telling people without actual evidence, that Shell, Total, and Starbucks, I didn't know how much I came to the suspicion that Starbucks is possibly the third in that element. None of them are local providers. It's just extraordinary.
And they're just new on the market.
And they're just new in the, and you can actually feel them. And they belong actually to...
One second, just...
Sorry.
To guide Otieno, fuel supply downstream is being controlled by foreign companies. All. If you look at the bigger ones, the first three, Shell was initially Dutch.
Totally, yes.
Then it moved into now this company which is based and anchored in Switzerland. Total is French, and Starbucks is Kenyan. Now all the other one has and so on and so forth are foreign. And I want you to know, in the transport sector, there is no single, hardly any Ugandan company that is registered to bring fuel into the country. And that is foreign exchange, which is located in the country. But this is historical. I want to tell you, this is historical. If you look at during your time when UPC was in power, you know that 5 of the major oil suppliers in the country, if you looked at Esso, British,
BP,
Caltex was American, Ajip was Italian,
BP, British,
Shell, BP.
Yeah.
And if you look at Total, all foreign. That was French.
And the quick answer would be this.
That I want you to understand. It has been a historical factor.
The pump for the consumer was not at what we have today, where it's actually more than £1, more than $1, amongst the most expensive in the world.
Oil trade is geopolitical.
And
I want you to know that in contextualizing this trade, which is the largest in the world, and you know that American strategic interests are all on fuel. And
conclude. Let him conclude. We'll come back to you.
I also want to note that 70% of oil trade is controlled by governments.
Should be. We have woken up.
You look at CNOOC.
If it is
national oil company.
If it is the case, if it's the case that we've learned lessons that government should, if it's the case that we've learned lessons that government should take a greater hand and control on many of these major components of our livelihood, fine. Just like Ibrahim said, we just cannot trust the government, including the manner in which many of these things are brought in. But as it were, then let's go back and look at the regulation of technology, the regulation of telecommunications, the regulations of urgently in terms of banking systems and institutions, to make sure that once again Uganda is able to re-own. We say this on the one hand, but on the other, Mr. Museveni sings his investors as if he does not have his citizens.
We are going to stop for a break, and you know what, Mike Mukula, you've done? You've made Namfi keep quiet, make notes and everything. So after the break, we are going to go to Namfi's notes and then update. Let's stop for a break.
The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM.
Waiting for December to start the holiday party? Why wait? Come, let's kick off the party season at Roast and Rhyme on the 26th of November at Jahazi Pia Munyonyo. Get your early bird ticket today on the FlexiPay app or roastandrhyme.com to see Mbule Holiday by the Lakeside, where there's gonna be lots of meat and music. See you there. Brought to you by
91.3 Capital FM.
Hey, is the food you're about to eat safe? Did you know that poorly harvested and stored grain can accumulate poisonous ingredients known as aflatoxins? Aflatoxin is a poisonous fungus found in the soil and decayed crops like maize, sorghum, and groundnuts. It can also be found in products like milk, eggs, and meat. If you eat contaminated grain or byproducts of animals fed on contaminated feeds, your body weakens, increasing chances of getting liver cancer, giving birth to underweight children, or may result into death. School children and breastfeeding mothers are at a higher risk. Farmers, use proper harvesting methods, dry your harvest on a clean tarpaulin, prevent rats from feeding on your harvest, sort your grain by getting rid of damaged grains, and keep your harvest in a well-dried, ventilated store. Protect produce from rain while transporting it. Safe food begins with you. This message is brought to you by the Grain Council of Uganda and the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, supported by AGRA.
Start and end your day with Uganda's best cup of fresh New Cafe and Omukago coffee. Omukago coffee is a blend of Robusta and Arabic coffee, while New Cafe is 100% Arabic coffee with the best aroma in the land. Get yourself a packet from our factory outlet at Coffee House, Ginger Road, and all big supermarkets like Quality Supermarkets, Mega Standard, Crown Supermarket, Port Bell Supermarket, Joma Supermarkets, and so many more in different sizes at different prices. For more, please visit our website at www.newcafe.org or call us on 0741-996-466. New Cafe and Omukago Coffee are quality products from New Cafe, National Union of Coffee, Agribusiness and Farm Enterprises Limited.
The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM.
Welcome back from the break. Namfi, you're on air. Welcome back from the break. Namfi, you're on air and on microphone.
Oscar, I've been taking my notes.
You did?
Since I first had Vitol.
Even today you've been taking notes?
Even today I took more notes. Oscar, we shall read about some of the stories about Vitol online. Vitol, in 2020, the U.S. fined Vitol millions of dollars, saying the company had manipulated market prices for fuel imports into California. According to Reuters, the company paid over $95.7 million to settle charges of corruption-based fraud attempted at market price manipulation. In the same year, Vitol paid $164 million to resolve allegations by U.S. of giving bribes to secure oil products deals in Latin America. Earlier in 2019, the company was paid $6 million for an alleged infraction on the market supplies. Further, it is alleged that the controversial operations in 2023 was accused by the United Kingdom of using controversial tactics to charge a record price for its energy plant and dry house power plant, blah, 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 blah. So this is Vitol, who has come now to save us. This is the reputation of Vitol globally. Manipulating prices, involvement in Iraq oil for food exchanges, involvement in Turkey, Ukraine, and Russian oil mafia cartels that have been running around Europe for the last 3 years. Not even just involved, heavily fines. And this information is public because these fines are public. These court cases against Vitol are public. And yet we sit here and want to hand over our souls to Vitol to save us. As I was saying in the break, this is like running from the witch doctor only to learn among night dancers.
Say it in Uganda.
No, thank you.
No, Uganda is not the station's official.
No, thank you.
Oscar, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. These good intentions, 70% globally. Most countries, government controls oil imports by 70%. But look here, Oscar, is this the best way to go about this? The reason why we are where we are is the very same government officials who got us there. The very government officials who sold our souls to these middlemen in Kenya and who have been reaping from these middlemen, and the Ugandan wananchi have been the ones paying the high prices. And none of these people have ever come out to even complain about these prices. UNOC has never come out to tell us we are fighting these prices, we are fighting middlemen, we've been making this noise. The prices go up during COVID. We see the global prices going down to even the negatives. Our prices continue soaring. We see the Ukrainian war starts, with the prices go up. When the repercussions have ended, their agreements, Russian oil is back on the market, we don't see these prices going down. Right now our prices are going up. I don't even know which excuse do they have now. And yet, not at any given time have I ever had a UNOC official coming to tell us that we have to deal with these prices, coming to tell us that we have to do something about our lack of reserves. We had reserves in ginger. They handed them back to them. Okay, government officials. Let's do Ministry of Energy. I'm mentioning UNOC because they're the ones who are purporting to become the buyers.
No. They are a new company.
They are a new company.
And they are not purporting. They are now being handed over. Which as many people have
Ministry
agreed.
Of Energy. Let me say Ministry of Energy.
Nafi, which many people have agreed that would be the good thing
Ministry
to do.
Of Energy. Ministry of Energy has never come out to protect us against soaring fuel prices, even when palm prices keep going up, even when middlemen keep, I won't use a bad word on air, I will keep messing us up. And yet now, Vitol comes very, very dirty, very, very implicated in every manner of scandal globally. And yet, the same Ministry of Energy looks to this monster, this diabolical creature, to come and save us.
You being a lawyer,
right.
so
Number two,
you
Oscar,
being a lawyer. So
what happens if the prices don't go down? What happens? Do we have these markers?
Those are better questions.
From what to what? If they tell us they are removing middlemen, and what if they don't go down? Do we then chase them? Is there any measures in place that we've tied ourselves to them for 5 years? Because the initial deal, yes, it is for 5 years. So within those 5 years,
or if we start a middleman war with Kenyans and so on.
How does that end? We are starting global wars. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, Oscar, the same government that has left us at the mercy of these number plate thugs who are going to charge us 735,000 shillings per number plate. They are businessmen. The same government which has left us at the mercy of those people is purporting now to save us from Kenyan middlemen. I really don't think that will wash. So at the end of the day, let's not erode even the little trust Ugandans have in government, and they don't have much. Okay, they don't have any. But then when you come again to promise that to look out for us, we're not going to believe you when on the other hand, you're leaving us at the mercy of some other third.
Many will say, we will agree with Mike Mukula and Ibra Semojo that the move may be good and the argument is where you have placed it, without using the bad words you have used.
I didn't use bad words, Oscar.
Yes. Honorable,
she just intended.
I want to agree with Naf. She didn't use any bad word this time around.
This time round, is it because she was she read everything on Vitol?
No, she first of all the facts which she came up with were useful to many listeners. They didn't know about it,
and are in the public domain,
yes.
International domain.
They are there, but many of our people are lazy. They don't go around, doing research, simple, basic research. They don't do that. But having said that, Oscar and Captain Mike Mukura, my uncle, knows this. In Kenya, the most powerful, all politicians are businessmen. And the politics of Kenya is so intertwined with business. This biggest business called fuel business has Kenyan politicians in it, and therefore internal Kenyan politics. After the previous regime lapsed, a new political class came in, and their rivalries. And Captain Mukula knows this more than anybody of us in these studios. Their fights of trying to destroy each other economically and politically, and the fuel business is at the center of it. There's another group, by the way, even when you talk about this particular company, one of the five, Starbucks, he knows that that company, it's public knowledge, it is a Ruto company. We all know it. So as we talk now, last week on Wednesday, there's a court order which has given what we call a conservatory or an injunction against this deal.
Against the fuel directive.
Yes, again, and the one we've signed, including UNOC being a party to that suit. They have sued UNOC. So this whole thing, the contradictions are just beginning. And let me tell you, and again, my uncle Mike knows this, fuel business is one of the most dangerous businesses in the world. In the world.
What happened at the Indian Ocean?
I happened to play a little bit when we were trying to regularize the law in this country. And I know I got so many facts about this industry that sometimes I feel insecure to talk about them. They are so scary. Nobody is going to allow this deal just to go on. Forget it. It's going to be a fight and a fight and a fight. And I can tell you, Mike, if you guys never envisage this fight, you are going to do this country a very big disservice. And the consequences of it will certainly be counterproductive. At the end of the day, we'll have a crisis and the prices will go up and the public is going to come hard and hard on you. Why? Why did the government, for example, in my view, rush and sign a deal without regularizing in the law? Why?